Part of my band-aid.
Oh, are we?
You're good to go.
Okay. Hello, everyone on my channel. This is Paul, and I'm interviewing my friends Dan and Evelyn, and they are both ENFPs. They actually took the test, literally, maybe an hour before we filmed this, and we stumbled across an interesting addition to the Myers-Briggs that we hadn't considered. So, Dan, you turned out to be an assertive ENFP, and Evelyn, you turned out to be a turbulent ENFP. And I know you both read the descriptions, so would you like to start by talking about what an how does being an assertive ENFP manifest itself in your life?
It means I know what I want, and I get what I want.
So
That sounds like Veruca.
So in other words, you're goal-oriented then.
If I want to be.
So basically you make your own decisions.
If I feel like it.
Okay. Evelyn? What's it like being a turbulent?
Well, you're just never quite sure that everything's okay with yourself. I think.
So a constant, personal growth kind of thing?
Well, it's you're insecure, but I can say that I'm not 100% like the description because it said that I would want to change my job if I didn't like it, and I really, no, I stick to patterns, I do things the same way, so, yeah.
Alright, so in our previous take, because this is take 2, we had discussed functions. So I'm going to briefly go through those again. In case, loyal audience, in case you haven't watched my other Myers-Briggs videos, I am an ISTJ, and surprisingly, even though we're totally opposite letters, we also have the exact same functions, but in reverse order. So for an ISTJ, the order is introverted sensing, extroverted thinking, introverted feeling, and extroverted intuition. And for the ENFP, it's swapped. So extroverted intuition is a function that, of course, it likes to make connections, but unlike introverted intuition, where it's like a tree root that sort of branches out, extroverted intuition is more like a ball of yarn, where it's sort of all over the place, and sometimes kind of random. So how
Which
would
one
you...
am
Extroverted intuition. The one that's more kind of more random connections. And outward connections too.
I had thought that extroverted intuition was when you were able to make connections between if I take apart that VCR, I can use that computer chip, I can put it together with this race car to make it go fast. I thought it was that kind of a thing, and I thought that introverted intuition was I can really understand kind of social dynamics and stuff like that.
Well, I'm not an intuitive, so I'll take your word for it.
That's what I thought you had told me before.
Well, before I had said that extroverted intuition...
Something Jesus was extroverted intuition.
He was introverted intuition.
Okay, because I thought he was extroverted intuition.
Because he loved making connections with people, but
yeah,
your extroverted intuitives, along with... Forgive my ringtone. Your extroverted intuitives along with introverted feeling. So likely you're going to try to make connections with your social settings, and you like harmony and people to get along, but because you're introverted feelers, that means you're likely going to put a lot of emphasis on your own moral compass and use that as a basis for making decisions.
Yeah.
That's why you're ENFPs and not ENTPs. Rumpelstiltskin sure likes talking about that. Okay, so how would you say that manifests itself in your life?
Well, see, I was just asking for clarification from you. I could totally be wrong. I just thought that's what I thought it meant.
Alright, so how does the combination of extroverted intuition and introverted feeling play out in your life?
Extroverted intuition. So what is extroverted intuition then?
It's sort of it likes to see connections and hidden meanings. Sometimes it can also be the idealistic function, extroverted intuitive dominance. They love new ideas. They love exploring new possibilities.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they can just be like, let's start a marching band, just like totally out of the blue.
I have those ideas all the time, and a lot of them I don't ever stick with. But I just have random ideas like buying a house and starting a coffee shop on the first floor, or things like that. Random things that come to mind, like, oh, dude, we should totally, go down, do this thing in Detroit, or different random ideas.
What about you, Evan?
I get cool ideas of projects, but don't act on them.
No, it's really good being in the education though, because you have a really random idea for your classroom all the time, and you can go bring it in the next day. You know what I mean? And a lot of these little things that don't really take that much time to plan out, but those things spring up all the time.
Yeah.
I also was gonna say I watched you ever seen the Shakespeare movie with Robert Downey Jr.?
Can't say I have.
You ever seen it? Evan?
I don't even know what you're referring to.
It's a Shakespeare movie with Robert Downey Jr. It was out a few years ago, but he would look at every little detail about somebody to try to find out more about them.
That's like what Sherlock does.
That's what I said, isn't it?
You said a Shakespeare movie.
Sherlock, yeah, Sherlock.
Wait, Robert.
He did Robert Downey Jr. did Sherlock, a movie. He did 2 movies.
Dude, BBC Sherlock as well.
Maybe. I've never seen it, but he always does that, and I do that too. I look at all the little details somebody's got going on. I learned about them doing that, but I might be wrong, making assumptions. But that's usually.
How did you think it was Shakespeare?
They're both British. They both start with
I'm sorry, playwright from a long time ago.
Shakespeare is S-H-A.
S-H vowel. Okay.
Anyway, so the contrast between how my extroverted intuition plays out is that's my weakest function. So that means for me, I tend to reject new ideas. And Evelyn smited me earlier with a pillow because I was like, Doctor Who. For me, when someone proposes a new project or something new and exciting, I'm like, I don't know. I think this thing is destined for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So usually ISTJs have a doom and gloom approach to the world's gonna go horrible because they're doing all these progressive movements and stuff like that. So
the glass is poisoned.
Yeah, for me, I don't like looking ahead to the future. I think ISTJs love preserving what has worked as opposed to being idealistic.
Mm-hmm.
So next on your function stack is introverted feeling. Now in the previous take we had described it as that inner compass, that need to have your own defined morals for making decisions. Not to say that you guys aren't people-focused, because, extroverts and all that, but you tend to base your ultimate decisions off of how your inner compass has influenced.
That's accurate.
So how would you say, we'll start with you, Dan, how would you say that that's manifested itself? Okay, sure. We'll start with you, Evelyn. How would you say introverted feeling manifests itself in your life?
Okay, so can you explain what it is?
A need for a moral compass, that need to internalize how you're feeling and make sense of it all.
Yeah. In terms of making decisions, if it's... I might even, second guess things that I have done to be was that the morally correct thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because I always want it to be I had a problem earlier with some water. That's why I've been doing this. What was I saying?
You were saying that sometimes you second guess what you've done earlier.
Yeah, okay, so I second guess it, and then I might even ask other people, is that the right thing to do? And it's always trying to establish, a what is right that is just known in here. Which is, it's really helpful to have the Catholic Church with that. But even then, there's certain situations that it seems gray and it's, confusing. And then those stick with me. And it's what, you really, really want to know. You really want to be able to see where you fall short, what your tendencies are, what you have to do to improve. And so that's something that I focus on a lot.
What about you, Dan?
I would say that definitely since I started thinking about, you talked about morality and stuff, and I started thinking about that in high school, and so I was really good at justifying a lot of things I had already set in my mind that I wanted to do, But that was that internal thinking, and then eventually, through some really challenging friends, led me to say you should really do what the Catholic Church teaches. And I was like, eventually came to really believe that. But that's been a big part of my inner compass is obedience. That's a big starting point, obedience to what the church teaches, and so that when I know what the church teaches about something, I think it's a nice thing to do. I know one example of something was one time I was having a confession, and a priest told me what one of my sins were that I didn't know was a sin. And that was like a hit on the head type of thing. And that was like, it was bad. It was bad because I argued with him and stuff because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. But you shouldn't argue with the priest when you're having a confession.
I guess not.
And one time he just stopped and was like, "I'm speaking in the person of Christ." And I was like, crap. I'll stop.
That's an interesting way of wording it.
Yeah, and anyways, okay, the whole point of that story was that it was about telling sarcastic jokes and exaggerating a lot in jokes and stuff, and so since then it's been an inner compass thing for me that to always try to tell the truth and not lie, even if it's just a joke, because it's kind of like disrespecting the truth, and Jesus is the truth, and so even if there's not really much harm that you see being done, you know what I mean? You could tell a little lie. I could say something that's like a lie, like right now. You know, something like, I have purple polka dots on my back. And it makes you laugh, right? It doesn't seem it seems harmless, but I just got you to laugh by saying something that wasn't true. And so I chose that laughter over the truth, who is Jesus. And so if I choose Jesus and no laughter, it seems like a funny thing. And I'm not saying that's a thing that everybody should do, because like yesterday Mateus made a really funny sarcastic joke, and I thought it was hilarious, and I was still laughing about it today. You know, so I'm not saying everybody should do that, but but it's just like an inner compass thing that I've done.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's like.
That does sound a lot like how an extroverted intuitive would think, comparing polka dots on your back to Jesus.
Well.
Definitely not an idea I would have come up with. So I guess for an ISTJ, to sort of contrast, I would say I'm pretty much the same, because that's my tertiary function, which means it's good enough, but not necessarily a go-to. Sometimes I have trouble knowing how other people are feeling, and sometimes like I might have a feeling but then decide not to act on it, and rather just the introverted feeling is sort of like the in the background holding me back from giving into desires kind of thing.
I got a question for you, because we act based on our feelings, and like a lot of times people really put that down, and a lot of times people really praise that. Like the beginning of the Moana movie, it was like really criticizing somebody that makes their decisions based on logic and being rational. But there's other times people were like, you know, you can't make all your decisions based on feelings. You really got to just get beyond the feelings. You got to cut out the feelings. And is there a right and a wrong, or is it like someone with our personality should make decisions based on feelings to be true to who we are, or should we seek balance? Or
well, I would say that the healthiest, in Jung's version, he said it's good to develop all the functions, because if you only base decisions on one thing or another, either one is going to be unhealthy. So you need to learn to like find a pretty even medium where they're balanced out. Because Jesus was INFJ, so he did a lot of things based on how he felt. Like, you know, he died on the cross because he had such immense love for the world.
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of his decisions were not based on logic, because he ended up getting killed. If he wanted to be the logical type, he would have just stayed quiet and remained as a carpenter in Nazareth.
Scott Hahn said, right, that I think it's him, said that, like, you know, one drop of blood would have done it. You know, the logical mind would have thought that way.
Mm-hmm. That is
but
interesting.
But the passionately loving mind says, my whole body and blood.
The logic comes in handy when you're having bad emotions, like when we have anger that you would act out on, you know? Or feelings of resentment, that if you can put those aside, like maybe it's depending on what feeling is it, then, you know, those feelings that are good, like, act on them. But if they're causing negativity and like they go against Christ, then the logic leads to the truth, which is Christ.
Yeah, like my dad always says, have emotions with reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the ideal that we should strive towards as not only Christians but as Catholics too.
I was having a conversation with a kid who he goes to the school where I'm student teaching, and we're talking about Star Wars, and he's more into the Sith than he is into the Jedi originally. And we really talked for like 2 days about it, because he comes in, he kind of skips his gym class and hangs out with us. The gym teacher's okay with it. But we had a prep hour, and so he comes and hangs out. And we're talking for like 30 minutes straight, 2 days in a row. And it really, that's what's at the heart of why he prefers the Sith. It's because the Jedi in the prologue trilogy had no emotions. And there's something very wrong with that. And so even though the Sith are clearly evil, he would rather lean that way than have no emotions. And that's kind of cool that, like, it's not, the choice for our actual universe with God is not, do you want to be good with no emotions or evil with your passion? It's like what Jesus does,
Yeah, very beautiful. So before we move on to the third function, which is extroverted thinking, we said in a previous take, oh boy, we might have to do a part 2. So we'll just briefly say that, because ENFPs are the most introverted of the extroverts, would you say that you've ever thought to yourself as you've gotten older, like, maybe I actually am an introvert after all?
Absolutely. Except I'm not, but I have thought about it. My need to recharge by being alone is definitely strong, and I still get so much energy being with people, so I'm an extrovert because that outweighs it, but it's so mandatory for my sanity to be alone that I was sometimes like, what is this? What's happening? So yeah.
What about you, Dan?
I can relate to that too. I know Evelyn's more like every week or so she needs that period of alone time, and for me it's like
Sabbath.
Yeah. For me it's more like every few months I need to go spend a couple days in a retreat or something just by myself. Not a guided retreat, but just kind of like time with God.
How much time do we have?
Roughly 2.5 minutes.
Well, in that case, we will take a brief interlude so that we can film part 2. So thank you very much, audience, for listening. Any closing words you guys want to say to the camera? I'll start, because I have my usual. Keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless.
Jesus loves you.
And cut.